So, hello, welcome to another episode. Previously I showed you how to add some permissions to your plugin, your server, and some essentials command plugins. And you might think, well, I'm ready to put my server online and let everybody come in, but you may want to wait just a minute on that. When you start building things, there is a tendency for other people to try to destroy those things. So we're going to talk this time about how to protect things in Minecraft with a couple of different forms of grief protection. For people who don't know what grief is any damage that people do to your buildings, the things you've created that causes you grief, causes you headaches and angers you. So one of the first things we're going to look at, and we're going to look at about 3 plugins or so. The first one we're going to look at is World Guard. And you see my Google knows exactly what I'm looking for. It knows I'm looking for bucket stuff, and it brought me to World Guard bucket page, which is what we need. You can see it's a powerful plugin that provides all the little things. You can block certain damage from creatures. You can disable fire and stuff. Now, some of this stuff is already in our Essentials plugin, but you get added protection here. Plus, you can actually create protected areas in your world that no one can build in them. And that's good. So we go ahead and download that. And I actually don't know if that's the version I want. Well, I don't know what I would want other than that, so I'll just get that. It'll probably still work. It's actually a newer version than what we're running. Oh, here we go. That's what I'm looking for. Right there. Sorry, everybody. There we go. Oh, wait for it to complete downloading. Now, it says install World Edit first. That's what I forgot. That's what I was thinking. It does require a World Edit, and many other plugins will require World Edit and World Guard in order to protect areas if the plugin's designed to help protect stuff and whatnot. So you probably want to get both of these plugins. Okay, that version is good for ours. So we'll go to our downloads. We will extract that. And now that World Edit is here, we will also extract it. Alright. Let's cut that out. Got World Guard, and I'm going to paste and then grab both of them. Haha, tricky. Got them. Alright. Somebody's probably sitting there going, there's an easier way to do that. But it seemed fine to me. Alright, there we go. Boom, got him. In fact, now I'm thinking about it, I could have used the control key. It probably was an easier way to do that. Alright, so anyway, we've got them all in here. We've got our world edits, we've got our essentials plugins, and we're going to go ahead and start it up and then take a look at the config files that it creates. So let's do our server launch. I think it's already started. There we go. Let's hit stop. Alright, let's take a look at what has been created in here. We have our World Edit folder with some basic stuff here. Not a whole lot actually for World Edit. And I will do another video all about World Edit. maybe not all about world edit, but I'll give you some kind of overview of it, and we'll take a look at it closer at some point. And here's our world guard setup. This is the global configuration file. So as it states right here, anything placed in here will apply to all worlds. However, each world has its own configuration file, which allow you to replace most settings in here for the world only settings. So basically, this is the default, and then if you have particular worlds you want to set individual things for, you can set them inside of worlds. What you do is inside a world, it creates one for each of your worlds. So you got world, another, world end. If you look at this config, it's empty. You can take this config, copy it, and then put it into the particular world, and then you can have per world settings. And let's look at what the settings are. First up here, this is your SQL information, your SQL information if you like. Sometimes I call it squill. I know that's probably not right, but that's what I like to call it. Because squill isn't a word, but whatever. You probably want to just leave this as it is, unless you're going to be messing around with a MySQL database. And if you know how to do all that, you probably don't even need my help with this particular setup. So, to be honest, I have no idea what auto invincible is. Most of these you probably want to keep on the defaults. De-op everyone on join. This may be an option you may want to turn on. Basically, this means if you're not going to use ops at all, which is a safer way to run your server, you'd have different individual permission groups all set up. And then if you set this to true, it'll make sure that no one is opt when they join the game. And then you can also block the op command in-game, which will also keep, in case somebody gets hold of your account or something terrible happens where they have permission to do all kinds of stuff, you can set it up right here in the config that no one can opt themselves in the game. So, don't know what host keys is. Summary on start, yeah, probably. Op permissions, true. Again, not totally sure on that one. Probably want to leave it at the default. Item durability. So I guess if you set this to false, your items will no longer break. Remove infinite stacks. Disable XP drops. You probably don't want to do that unless you don't want to give people XP. If that's something you're doing with your server, there's the command to do it right there. Obsidian generators. So if you want to keep people from actually creating obsidian, you can do that. If you want to block certain potions like invisibility, you can throw it in here. Might be a good thing to have. So yeah, going through here, this is all your basic settings for physics, like whether you want gravel to fall, sand to fall. Allow people to create a portal anywhere. Water block damage, you'd probably put the block numbers in here. I'm not exactly sure how those are formatted. You can block TNT. A lot of these settings, as I said, are similar to the ones that were in Essentials config. And I'm not going to go through them any further because I had kind of forgotten. This is going to be just sort of a video about just giving you a couple plugins that you should use to stop grief. In fact, I think I'm going to restart this video. I'm not happy. Nah, I already did a little bit. I'm going to keep going. I'm not going to give up now. Hopefully you're still watching, people. So let's move on to another one. Our next plugin, we're going to have to Google it because it's not going to be in the Bucket Dev pages. We're going to look for Towny Advanced. If this stuff isn't coming for you on Google, try adding the word Bucket or even Minecraft, but Bucket's probably a better thing to try. And you can see here, Towny Advanced, a plugin for Minecraft. And this is Towny Advanced. Towny Advanced will allow you and your players to set up different towns and to prevent things from happening, like if players aren't a member of that town, if they have the town set up a certain way, they will not be able to build. They will not be able to destroy. They will not be able to even switch things or pick up items or do anything if you set it like really secure. And individual mayors for the towns can decide that stuff, which makes it pretty cool because your players can kind of take care of most of it for themselves. So here's the latest version. It's actually for 1.5.2, which is what we need it to be for. And I don't like the way their page is set up. They should just put their stuff on. They should just put their stuff on Bucket Dev, because then you know the stuff works. And right now I'm having a hard time figuring out where to download it. There we go. Alright, so Towny Advanced, and this is another zip folder, so we unzip it. This includes a couple things. We got questionnaire, we're going to need that. Towny, we do not need Towny Chat unless you want to use Towny Chat. Towny Chat's okay. I prefer either Essentials, Hero Chat. Yeah, there are quite a few. Since we're using Essentials, I'm going to go ahead and use Essentials Chat just because it goes with the stuff we're already using. So we'll throw this in. Alright, so we now have Towny in there. Let's go ahead and start up the server and take a quick look at the config for Towny. It's pretty large, but we're going to run through it real fast. And I'll probably do a larger video on Towny because it's pretty involved. Yeah, backup, data, logs. Most of this you won't be messing with. You'll be messing with settings and the config file in particular. Okay, permission nodes. You don't really want to mess with those, but if you're looking for a permission node, you can check it in here. Tiny creation admin only. You can set this is true if you want just admins to be able to create towns and or nations. A town protects your area, sort of mostly just chunk protection is really what it is. The nation is more kind of like a bunch of towns join together to become a nation, and it's not really a physical area, but more symbolic, you know, just like real nations, sort of, except that most real nations have borders. In this game, real nations don't really have a border in Towny. They're more of the alliance of the different towns, and then they go to war with each other if they want to. But you could use factions or some other plugin to create battles and whatnot, and I'll probably do a video on factions if you're interested in that plugin. So right here we got town level, ruins, settlement, hamlet. This depends on the size of your town, which size of your town depends on how many players you have in the town. Like number of residents, it says 10 here, and that gives you like a certain amount of blocks to expand your town with. So basically, once you start a town, you need to try to invite people to join your town so that you can continue to have it grow, and you can have bragging rights and say you have the best town in the land, right? So not only does this give you some grief protection and keeps people from destroying other people's property that they've built, it also encourages some rivalry. It adds the ability for you to set up your town and then have individual plots that you sell off to people. So it's kind of up to you how secure you want your town to be. The more you require people to buy a particular plot, and you put it in a certain area where it belongs, and you have residential areas and shop areas and all that stuff, the better your town's going to look and the cooler really things are going to be for you. This default statuses. If you put this to true, then all towns that people create will be open, which means anybody can join, even if they're not invited in without the mayor saying that they can come in, which is probably not a good idea, because then people will just come into the town and destroy stuff. So, town limit, number of towns allowed in the server, you may want to bring that down. It all depends. Now, what I do is I have taxes set on my towns. So there's a minimum tax on my towns. If people don't come and play on the server, then their town eventually runs out of money, and it gets erased. I mean, like, you can. All right, there's two ways to set it up. You can set up Towny where, when the town runs out of money and the town gets erased, that everything they've built gets destroyed, which I think is the default setting, and you may want to change that. The way I have it set up is if your town goes into ruin, your stuff doesn't disappear, but it's unprotected, and then people can come in and destroy it. So that's basically how that goes. New world settings using Towny. Do you want all towns to have Towny enabled by default? You probably do. PvP, world PvP true. Force PvP on. Again, be careful with that, because you may end up with, depending on how many plugins you have in your server, you may start having multiple plugins with PvP settings, and if you set one of them to false, you might have horrible headaches trying to figure out why nobody can PvP, because you haven't looked at the right plugin to figure it out, and that's happened to me, and it's a problem. World monsters on, force town monsters on. This overrides town flags. Most towns are flagged to have explosions turned off, fire turned off, mobs turned off, so mobs despawn when they walk into the town, which is kind of nice, because when you're in town, no mobs attack you, and people can wander around in town late at night and not be bothered by monsters or explosions or fire. So, and you can individually set those per town, so you may not want to mess with the defaults. And instead, if somebody wants a town where they're going to have PvP, because like it's a pirate town or like some kind of Wild West town, then you turn the PvP on for that particular town, and the mayor can just set it that way. This is the revert on unclaim. You may want to turn this to false. It's any town plots which become unclaimed will slowly revert to a snapshot taken before the plot was claimed. So that could be dangerous, and people will get upset when things start reversing. And your other grief protections and whatnot are not going to stop this. This is going to be permanent, so you got to be careful about that. Of course, the ultimate grief protection is to make a backup of your server every night, the entire world folder, in case something horrible goes wrong. I'll be honest, I haven't actually done that in a while. I have to do that real quick as soon as I get done with this video, now that I'm thinking about it. But global town settings, friendly fire, true. So health regen, towns regenerate health, which is kind of cool. Allow outposts. Outposts are areas away from towns that are claimed by a town. You get the idea. It's an outpost. it's for war type stuff. To get an outpost close to somebody else's town, so you can keep an eye on them. And I wish I knew a little bit more about how you actually go about doing wars in Towny. I really don't know it that well, other than how you make alliances and rivalries against other towns. I don't know about full-on battles and stuff. And there's you can also make war zones. So here's your setup for your MySQL if you want to do that. For Towny, I have mine set up for MySQL. That way, if what happened to me was the flat file, which was what this is, a flat file. It's just a file that it keeps as written text. Mine got deleted at one point. Some of my plugin folders got erased accidentally. And so I decided to start keeping all my Towny information and major plugins that I really, really like a lot. I try to keep them on a MySQL database if I can. And I will try to do a video on how to start and run a MySQL database in the future, because we'll need one for one of the plugins that I'm going to talk about right after Towny here. So let's get this done with. Alright, some interfaces about TechIt. Blah, 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 blah. This is your filters for color and chat. If you're using Towny Chat, I don't think that will matter if you're not using Towny Chat. Some block protections. Wilderness settings. Wilderness is any area that's not claimed outside of a town. There are some things when you start up Towny you're going to need to do. You will need to look at the permissions and decide whether you're going to give everyone permission to build in the wilderness, or make it so that they can only build inside of a town that they join or a town that they start. If you want to keep your server looking really nice and clean and not have stuff built everywhere, you may want to not allow people to build in the wilderness. It's something that I probably should have done, but I didn't, and so I didn't. I'm going to skip some of this. Default perm flags. This allows residents, they can build, destroy, use items, and switch. So they can do just about everything inside of a town. Allies cannot do anything inside of town. You may want to allow allies to at least use items and switches. Outsiders can't do anything. If you want to be real nice, you might let outsiders use items and use switches inside of a town. If not, it may be difficult for them to buy items from chest shops and other things, so keep that in mind. More settings for defaults and stuff, and blah 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 blah. There's a whole lot of settings. We got economy settings. This is how much it costs to travel, how much it costs to start a town, a nation. You have something called Town Bank. When you start your town, you need to put money into your bank so that the taxes, the daily taxes, which are down here, like the town upkeep, is taken out of the bank, and they have to make sure that they tax their residents. So money goes into the bank, and then it gets taken out by the upkeep amount. Okay, here's the daily upkeep. See, you got town upkeep is like $10, and then so like basically, if they don't charge any taxes to their residents, they're probably going to run out of money, and their town is going to be deleted. So here's some stuff about the war stuff. Again, don't understand it too much. You guys can read through here and try to figure it out. I really have been unable to really understand exactly how flag war and all this stuff works. So if anybody does figure it out, please feel free to I don't know, you can contact me on Skype at Merchant of Death if you want to talk with me about it. I'd love to hear your thoughts on how wars work in the Towny plugin. But that's a pretty quick overview of all that. Actually, it's probably not as short as I would have liked it to have been, but let's move on to our final grief protection plugin. And this is really the one that is kind of the master. And that is Log Block. Now there are a couple different versions of this kind of plugin. There was one called Big Brother, I think, and there was maybe it wasn't Big Brother. It was Big Brother. I think it was Big Brother. And there are a few different ones. Basically, the concept behind this plugin is it's a plugin that uses a MySQL database to keep track of every block that is destroyed or built. So any block that has major changes. I didn't realize they were back at version 1.47. I'm using this on my server with 1.62, and it still works okay. And again, I might be using a dev build. Anyway, let's download this version and hopefully it'll work for us. Probably will, because there isn't Well, no, I don't know. They added new blocks in the last update, so I am not certain. The other thing is, if you can't find the plugin you're looking for the version you want, one thing is to try to go looking for development builds or something called bleeding edge builds, and sometimes those can help you out. And paste that in. We're going to stop our server because it was running from before. And I have a MySQL database running right now. Doesn't look like it's running, but it actually is running. So I'm going to make a table real quick. Forbidden. Uh-oh. Well, maybe I'm not. I don't want to waste a bunch of time trying to do that. Yeah, see, because I have a I have a website running, so I can't actually access that. When we start this, it's going to get a bunch of errors, and log block's not going to work. But, yeah, because I don't have the database hooked up. But I will show you how log block works on my other server, because I have it in there. Let me make sure I have the right version. I do not. Alright. I really love how you can switch versions so easily now. Thank you, Minecraft, or Mojang, or Bucket, or whoever fixed that. Not hello, I always say yellow. Okay, so what I'm going to do is try to show you log block. Hopefully it's working. First thing I need to go into creative and grab some bedrock. This bedrock is really the best log block tool. When you hit stuff with bedrock, you can see it says block changes, no changes shown. Let me go to the spawn and look at some stuff that's been built over here. Boom, you can see. The most recent thing is that Shifter created fence at that date, and then somebody way back destroyed sand that was built up. So there was actually sand built up right in that spot where that is. And the other thing, you can drop it down, and you can see sand was destroyed here because they leveled this stuff out. See where it was leveled down. So, really awesome tool to use. It does sometimes glitch like for a second. That's just a little bit of lag. But the item comes back, and then it tells you, you can see, been created and destroyed a couple times. They were trying to get it to look right. And this is our little town called Mercy. It's a Doctor Who thing. Okay, I'm going to end this video because I think I got griefers and people that I have to ban. So, actually, you know what? You guys can watch me because this is all about grief, isn't it? This guy or somebody over here. Let's see what's happening here. Okay. Alright. Well, there was a big, really nice looking tower here. I hope that they say they're redesigning and they're going to make it better, but yeah, so hopefully they are. Because I really liked the clock tower that was up there. So anyway, guys, I hope that those 3 plugins are going to help you out. I will try to do a more involved look at each of those plugins and how to use the commands in game and how to like build a town and do all that stuff if I get the chance. There are a lot of different videos I want to do. I'm just trying to give you guys sort of a little walkthrough of the different plugins you should have when starting a server for the first time ever. And I hope this was helpful. And really keep in mind that grief is one of those things. It's going to happen. Use Towny to try to prevent it from happening in the first place. Use LogBlock to bring it back after it's been destroyed and horrible things have happened. And shortly I will try to do a video on how to set up that MySQL database and all the stuff that you need to know, so that you can have LogBlock going. Because really, for me, LogBlock is the #1 best grief protection plugin that I have, and I try never to have my server running without it on. So alright guys, I'll see you on the next video. Hope you enjoyed this one. Later.